Welcome to MoMo Stitch. So today we're joining the same color or multiple colors. It doesn't really matter, but this is when you're joining in the middle of your work for whatever reason. All of a sudden, this is what normally happens to people. They're knitting away and they find a little knot, and that's a manufacturer's knot. It can be there. There you could have up to 3 in a ball on an average, but it's a manufacturing situation because there's limitations to machinery and how much it can carry. So that's why they're doing the joining. And sometimes machinery, something breaks and they're not going to waste yarn. We don't want any manufacturer to waste yarn because as yarn people, we realize that it's not a very good thing for the environment if there's too much waste. None of us waste our little bits and bobs, and so we can't expect the manufacturer to either. So we don't want a tie like that. That's no good. It won't last. How are we going to join our yarn? MoMo way, because I don't have another name for it. I want to create a join that looks like that. That's what I'm going to be doing. So what I want to do is, it doesn't really matter when I start doing the connection, but I want to leave a fair amount of space. And you can see it's almost the rest of my piece, but by the time it's making the stitches, it'll only probably do a couple of inches. So I've chosen to do it while I'm in purl ways, and I'm going to pick up the yarn, and the first stitch is going to be a little bit more difficult to do, but what I want to do is I want to just grab that end and do my purl and make sure I'm tugging everything down. You notice I've now only got my loop. I'll add in my other piece in a second. If I get a couple in here, so we have that little tail, we leave that. We want to be working the double strand. So there, we've got 2 stitches done in the double strand, and now we've got this loop here. What I want to do is make another loop. So I'm going to pull my other end that I cut through, leave it a nice enough long tail. Let's pull it down here so you can see better. All right, and there's where we're joining. And we're going to be working this through. So I'm just going to grab this like I was knitting. And I'm going to work it. All right, so look, there's my join. Here it comes into the stitch. It's already locked in. I'm not worrying about weaving in any ends because these ends are long. They're working into the stitches. And they don't really create too much of a discrepancy in the density of the stitch. People say, oh, people are going to notice. No, they're not going to notice. Honestly, once you block your piece, it's not going to be noticed. And you're going to have enough join periods in your yarn because you're going to be joining new balls, things like that, that you're going to have the odd one. And if you really want to get picky about it, you could tink back to the beginning and doing it at the beginning of a row, or you could do it at the end of a row. As you become from beginner to intermediate, you're going to be able to deal with that, no problem. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to knit across that so you can see where the join, what the join looks like when it's finished. So we're getting close to where the work is. Okay, so here's our first one. It's a double. Can you see that well? There we go. Go into the double strand and start knitting. So see what happened? We had about 8 stitches there that were all double strand. So that's a really nice lock. Oops. Okay, so when we look at the work, we can't see any lumps and bumps. It's not that crazy of a connection. So this is what I think is the easiest way to join your yarn when you have an issue like that, or if you have to join new balls. And also, you've got 2 little bits here. And you can just cut those off. I cut them off with a little extra because when I block, they're going to tighten up a little bit. Some people may say, oh, I want to tie that in a knot. If it's a sweater, you do whatever you want. But if you're doing a blanket or an afghan or something like that, you might not want to be having knots on the back. I'm not a knot person. I would leave it like that. I've never had my stuff come apart, and I've been knitting forever. So that's what we can be doing with that.